All right, so this is my last live of the day because I have been so busy, you guys, per usual. And I have been in the golden place. And so these are things that I've been wanting to post about. And so I said I might as well just get them all out today. Um, so you guys can come on in. Of course, this will be posted. But these are very important topics that I think are worth a share. And I am a very private and personal. All right, thank you, Vivi. I'm a very private person, and so I don't often talk about these things. I think this thing here is the very first time I am talking about this out loud in public. Um, as far as my bout with depression as a in my adolescence, my family knows, and maybe one or two other people. So that's not widely known either. And so, but this is the first time I am talking about this. Honestly, my sisters don't even know about this. Um, the only one that knows is my mother, um, and that is uh, I'll let you guys know how she knows that this tragedy almost happened to me. Um, People often ask why I am the way I am with my son. There's a reason for it. You have to be extremely careful about who you allow your children to be around. Even in their teenage years, you have to be extremely careful. Once someone has your children in their clutches, or in their world, in their environment, and you're not there to uh, protect them, you're not there to supervise, horrible things can happen. And so I want to tell the story about how I was almost raped. Um, and so, as a teenage girl growing up in Chocolate City, in DC, um, back then we had projects, right? And there's still a few left, but they started to like tear them down in the early 2000s to prepare for gentrification. But I grew up when there was the projects, and some of my family lived in the projects, right? And so there was a project called Valley Green, which is, where my cousins grew up. And, we grew up in kind of like, a middle class neighborhood. And I just always thought it was just so fun, to go over to the projects and like hang out with my cousins, right? Because we had so much fun. And like my aunt, she really didn't care, too much about what we did. We could kind of, uh, get up under the tight grip that we were accustomed to, being at my mom's, right? So every weekend we would just be so pressed to go over to the project, right? And so there was a project in DC that I frequented, and because my mother's husband's daughter lived there, so my stepsister. So I would go and spend summers, over there, just chilling, having a good time, shooting the breeze. So I was a good 13 years old, okay, at the time. And one night, this girl who I really didn't know, But she came around, and so she was like, walk with me, come walk with me. It's my birthday, right? So I was like, okay, I'll walk with you, right? So naive. And that's not really who I am. So I was just shocked that I went along with this girl knowing that I really didn't know her. So she caught me on my like off day, right? So I walked with her and we went around the way where I went to high school, right? And this is where um some of the fellas hung out. And I guess she wanted to see what was up, with one of the dudes, right, that she liked. So we walked around there and she started talking to these dudes. Now, I didn't know these guys, right? But I knew the neighborhood, right? And so she started talking to them. They invited us to ride with them. So here I am again. I'm going along and I'm getting in the car. Don't know these guys again from Adam. And she's in the front, I'm in the back. There's two guys, and then she and I. And we ended up going to an area in which I recognized, right? So it was the projects where my cousins grew up and where I frequented. And so they lived there. And I was like, oh, I know this neighborhood. Like, they was like, oh, you do? I was like, yeah, I know this neighborhood, right? So that was, I left it at that. So they take us into their apartment. The girl who told me to walk with her went into some other room with the guy. And I was just left there with my little 13-year-old self, so green, don't know anything, and with the guy, and I'm just looking all around at stuff and, I'm just don't know what to do. So I ended up, like I said, I was just looking around, looking at in the living room. And then I peeked into a room that had all these pictures on the wall. And so I started to look at the pictures and I was like, oh, you know him? You know him? He was like, yeah, I know them. He was like, you know them? I said, I know them very well. I was like, that's my cousin. That's my cousin. Right. And he was like, oh, that's your cousin? These your cousins? I said, yeah, those my cousins. Like they live down the hill. So he was like shocked. Right. And so all of a sudden he told the other dude, like, we got to go. We got to go. We got to take her. We're going to take her back, like where we picked them up from. Right. So the other girl, I don't know what happened. They dropped her off somewhere along the way. And then they took me back to the projects and where I was staying with my stepsister. And they said, you need to watch who you're with. And that was it. And I was like, okay, good night. So the next probably couple of days, my mother came and she said, who were you with the other day? And I said, oh, I was just with this girl, who comes around here. And she was like, well, how old is this girl? Do you know her? And I was like, oh, she just turned 15. I was like, I don't know her like that. I've just seen her. She said, you have no idea what was about to happen to you that night. And I said, huh? And she said, your cousin called me and told me that those two guys intended on raping you and that girl. And if it wasn't for you showing them who your cousins were, your ass would have been raped. And that thing scared me half to death. And even now, thinking about it, it just makes me really emotional. One, because I had someone watching over me. Somebody was watching over me. And it warms my heart. But then the other is just the thought of me being violated in such a way, you know, just to have my innocence taken away, to be violated. It still makes me really emotional, and I'm just extremely, extremely grateful. Right. And then when I saw my cousin, he scolded me. He was like, "Don't you be hanging around that girl. She's a fast ass. You're not that type of girl. You have no business hanging around her. Do you know we would have had to done X, Y, and Z to the, whatever." Thank goodness for the clout that my cousins had. Okay. That these dudes respected them so much that they said, "Oh, we can't do that to her." You know, thank the Most High for the angels. Thank the source for the angels that were with me that night. Again, so green. It was just stupid, really. So watch your children. A lot of times you drop your children off and you think that they're okay because they are with family. It's not so. This is one reason why my son has never been to a sleepover, ever. The kids could come to my home. My son cannot sleep over at your house. He can't. And I had to explain to him why. You don't know what type of influence or impact people can have on your children. Again, once they have them in their home and you are not there. And I just was never willing to take the chance to allow my son to be potentially violated, because then I knew that there would be nothing anybody could do to stop me. I'm willing to go wherever I need to go for mine. I mean that with every fiber of my being. Don't play with mine. Please don't. So I knew that. And so I said, I can't. I cannot allow my son to sleep over at people's houses. I wasn't willing to take that chance. And like I said, it's just so many times, you send your children to auntie's house. It's also a reason why my son could not sleep over at some of my sister's houses. Some of the things that they allowed in their home, the goings and the comings with multiple people, my son can't come to your house. I love you, but he cannot spend the night at your house. We run two different types of households, and I love them. But I love my son, and my job is to protect him. And so even with some of my siblings, I just could not allow my son to be in that environment either. So watch your children. Just because they are with family, it does not mean that they are safe. And look at my stepsister. She was like 10 years my senior. She didn't know where I was. She was not keeping an eye on me. I'm sure my mother thought that she was, but she wasn't. She was out doing her own thing. So you think that your family's watching your children, and they're not a lot of the times. So you really have to know the character of the person or persons in whom you're leaving your children with, because it could have dire consequences. That's my message. Don't be so lax and lackadaisical about who you leave your children with. And it doesn't matter what anybody has to say about you being overprotective and overly careful. You should be when it comes to your children. You should be. Because had a lot of parents been overly careful and more protective, then maybe some of the people that have been violated wouldn't have been violated, because the parents may not have been so trusting of family members or friends of families. And those are the number one people, honestly, that you have to watch out for, truth be told. So watch your children. Watch your children. I'm just so grateful that there were angels with me. I'm so grateful for, the clout that my cousins had, and there, two of them have passed away. But I'm so just grateful that I was protected, and that my innocence was preserved. And that I was able to keep my sanctity, my purity, my virginity, up into, just before the time I became pregnant with my son. And I just, everything in due time, everything in due time. I just couldn't even imagine the type of impact, that would have had on me. And especially with me just having that bout with depression, I'm sure that would have just exacerbated, um, you know, the depression that I was dealing with, at the time. So that's story time. That is story time. And so that's it, you guys. Until next time, be good. All right. Bye.